Hello, good friends, and welcome to another episode of the 10,000 Layups podcast. I'm Kyle Radke. I'm here with Julian Andrews.
What's up?
Not much, man. How are you?
Good. Still buried in house projects, but it's all good stuff.
That's going to be the rest of your life.
Yeah, that's what they say.
That's what I was going to say. That's what nobody tells you, but that's literally what everybody tells you.
Yeah, you told me that 2 weeks ago.
That's what I'm getting old.
And yesterday, I think.
I did spend like 45 minutes today just watering plants around my house. So
nice.
Yeah, good times all around. Before we get into our episode this week, we want to thank our good friends at DraftKings. You've heard us talk about DraftKings because they're the leader in daily fantasy sports and how payday can come every day by entering their contest with huge cash prizes. Now, I wouldn't say depend on it to be payday every day.
So could be payday every day.
It could be, yeah. I wouldn't depend on it though. I won. I've won a couple bucks on my on the free pools. They've been a lot of fun, and I've actually used that money to create another lineup, and I lost. But still, it was the fact that I could have won from basically a free pool. So that's what I would do if I were you. Free pools, NBA playoffs. Obviously, next game is on Wednesday. Baseball. Use the code TBPN when you sign up. New users will get a free entry with their first deposit. That sounds fun. Code TBPN to get a free entry with your first deposit. Only at DraftKings. Minimum $5 required. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com for details. Okay, so NBA Finals, they're happening. Last week we had a guest on from the Bucks podcast, which if you haven't listened to it yet, I would go listen to it because it's interesting because we talk about Budenholzer and we talk about how maybe Budenholzer should get fired if the Bucks win, which is just silly. And that obviously won't happen. But also I don't know. It's just crazy that that's inside somebody's mind that's a Bucks fan, which tells you just how rocky it is.
Yeah, it does. I don't know. I don't think you can do that.
Well, no, I mean, but I guess obviously not. And we're talking about this after the Bucks won Game 3 and everything looked great. And that that's a crazy thing about these finals and the playoffs in general. And we do it every year where we all get so excited about one team, and then we're like, "Gosh, I have no idea how the Bucks could possibly come back from this." And then they play well, and then now it's like, man, the Suns don't have any depth behind Ayton. I don't get how the Suns can win another game, and it's just like this ebbs and flows.
I mean, I was thinking about this earlier. I really think for the first time in a long time, or maybe not for the first time in a long time, but now more than any other time that I can remember, we know exactly how each team wins, right? Mm-hmm. It's if the Bucks get Ayton in foul trouble, Jrue Holiday plays well, Chris Middleton plays well, in addition to Giannis, Bucks are going to win. If those don't happen, if Devin Booker misses a bunch of shots, Bucks are going to win. If Devin Booker is hitting all the shots, they're taking either Middleton or Holiday away, Ayton stays out of foul trouble, Suns are going to win. It's just I don't know. It's just so I don't want to call it predictable because I think it's been a very, very exciting series. And so I don't think this is a bad thing. It's just very interesting to see all these kind of micro adjustments happening with the understanding that is how both teams know exactly what they need to do to win. And they know what they need the other team, to stop the other team from doing in order to win. So it's been, I'm really enjoying these finals, I have to say. I'm rooting for the Suns, but I'm kind of glad that the Bucks got a game, at least. And it's really exciting. It's
so hard to root against Giannis too.
It really is.
He's one of those stars where he doesn't really do anything that annoys me. So yeah, I'm having a tough time. I'm cheering for both teams. Of course, in Game 3, just as a basketball fan, you want the team down 2-0.
Right.
But yeah, if you didn't listen to our podcast last week, Joel Graham from Give Me a Buck podcast, he was really good. He talked about, he kind of talked about stuff that we knew, but then he also talked about kind of the Jrue Holiday experiment and how it was going fine if they win a title, it's great. If they lose, if they lose in the finals, then he's talking about, well, do you just need to start from scratch and get rid of Middleton and Holiday, and then just try to build around Giannis, which we're not there yet. But I mean, if they do lose the title and Giannis plays as well as he's played, you probably do have to think about that. Like, how do we get rid of some of these? Because
much easier said than done, though. Like, who are you getting is what I would say.
I totally agree. But I think when you look at like what's at stake with Giannis's career and like how little of a window you have, because you look at the East next year and it's like the Nets are going to be healthier, like, and that's going to be your team. I mean, you're right. That is a difficult question, and we can probably go over that.
I mean, I'd love to. Yeah, I mean, I'd love to devote an episode to
just to what should the Bucks do on a Minnesota Timberwolves podcast.
Fake trades. I mean, I'd love to talk about this stuff, but it is kind of like Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton are good.
Yes. But then you get in. So I don't want to say if you win this title this year, I don't want to say it's the easiest title. It's probably the title with the less competition that you'll ever face. And I'm not, and I mean that with all due respect, because each team right now is playing with like 6 guys. So each team is like super beat up, but like each team's path to the finals.
The window is open now.
Exactly. And you're not going to have another season like this where the Bucks had to beat the Atlanta Hawks to make it to the NBA Finals.
Mm-hmm.
The Suns had to beat a Clippers team without Kawhi Leonard. And before that, they had to beat, like a Denver team without Jokic or without Murray. And then before that, it was the Lakers without AD. And I'm not saying, like we talked about this before, you only can beat the teams ahead of you. Right. But also, if you don't win in this window, you have to look back and go, okay, like how do we compete again next year? I think like it's easy to say, well, yeah, we'll just bring it back next year. And then the 76ers are better. The Nets are better. And Julian, what's been your favorite part of the finals so far?
My favorite part of the finals is something that's also just kind of been my favorite moment, or I'm going to start with this. It's also been my favorite part of the playoffs, which is that these just like seeing Booker and Ayton, especially, kind of come into their own. And it's interesting when you're talking about, this is the path. These young stars are not waiting around, like Booker, Ayton, even like Trae Young, like some of the good young players in the Hawks, like they're not waiting. They're not going to wait for this kind of like, even like the Nets, KD, Harden, Kyrie. It's like these big names, like for the first time in a really long time, I think we're starting to see a transition to some younger players who will actually, I think, kind of be the face of the league in 5-10 years, and I think it's really kind of exciting to see those players on the biggest stage so early in their careers, because you don't see that much. Like the last person that happened with was probably Kawhi, right? Mm-hmm. Like we just don't get to see young players play in the finals very often, just because of how, like, I don't know, just like how dominated by these kind of free agent teams the finals have been lately. And because their team's kind of mostly made up of free agents, they by necessity have to be a certain length into their career. So I don't know. It's just been cool to like see young guys play in the finals. And then also, I don't know, watching Giannis has really been something else.
Yeah, it's been fun.
He's just, I think people forget, how good he is, just because I think a lot of people find the Bucks boring. I think people just don't. The weaknesses in Giannis's game are very easily pointed out. Like he's a bad free throw shooter. He can't shoot 3. But then you forget that those are literally the only 2 things he can't do. Right. So, and they're big things. Like if he could do those things, he would be literally unstoppable. Like if you couldn't play 3 feet off of him when he's at beyond the arc, what are you gonna do?
Yeah,
and so I get that. I get that conversation of like, oh, if Giannis could do these things, he might like be the best player of all time. But he's just so good. It's really fun to watch.
He's so good. I think my favorite part of the playoffs has been players that we've written off. in the finals, but also just in the playoffs in general, players that we've written off, just reminding us that they're still here. And whether that's because they're getting an opportunity because someone is hurt, whether that's because they're playing to a competition level that's lower, like I don't really know, and I guess I don't really care. But you look at in the West, you have players like Reggie Jackson, even somebody like Patrick Beverley, who I hate so much, but you watch the games and you realize like why Patrick Beverley is Patrick Beverley and why the Clippers signed him to X contract. Like, I'm stuck on the Clippers here, but like Luke Kennard, like you could see a world in which like, the 4-year, $64 million contract looks horrible, but if they make it to the finals and he hits 5 threes in a game and they win, like, okay. The Suns, like Cameron Payne.
I was Monte Morris on the Nuggets.
Yeah. Not Jake Crowder's not somebody we wrote off, but just like a guy we forget about. DeAndre
Bobby
Ayton.
Portis.
Bobby Portis. Like I mean, Ayton and Paul are like the headliners because Paul, you're like, well, he's this aging point guard who always gets hurt in the playoffs, and now here he is. Ayton, it was this, well, Trae Young and Luka Doncic went after him. He shouldn't have been the number 1 pick. And then you go in the Bucks, and I mean, not that we've ever doubted Giannis, but I think there was probably some hesitancy on like, is Giannis the guy that can like be the guy, or is he going to end up in the like LeBron James, Kevin Durant pantheon, or is he in the that tier below that, which is like the James Harden, Paul George? And I think like we're starting to get a clear picture. Another guy who like Trae Young, like he's a star. Like you can't dispute that anymore. It's not like a good stats, bad team guy. It's like he's a legitimate star that you're building around. So it's been fun. Just a lot of unanswered questions that we know some of these guys, and I feel better about that.
Yeah, totally. I think there was some weird kind of retroactive, should Giannis have won back-to-back MVPs? Like, is he that good?
And if you look at his stats, his numbers were like the same this year.
They were just exactly. But I mean, this is what he hasn't done. He hasn't won in the finals, or isn't. I mean, I think Giannis coming back from injury and playing as well as he has should be enough for us to say, okay, Giannis is incredible. But if they do come back and win this finals, I mean, that'll be like legendary. There aren't that many teams that come back from down 2-0. I'm sure they said that stat a lot on the broadcast. But it's just, I don't know. It's a lot could happen over the next week that could really shift how we talk about the league next year.
Yeah, and I'm bummed that these games are like 4 games or 3 days apart. Which is fine, I guess. Get the players rest, but going from Sunday to Wednesday, then I think the next game's on Saturday.
Yeah, let me see.
Yeah, I think that is a schedule because I looked it up because of course we have plans on Wednesday and Saturday, which that's life. All right, let's go to some Wolves news. Former Timberwolves assistant coach David Vanterpool has joined the Nets as an assistant coach. Quote from Kevin Durant, "That's family to me. He's from the same area I'm from. We know the same people, mutual family friends. I can't wait to have him on board." Good for him, right? Joining I mean,
it's like
I think
super group of assistants right now over there.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where people were asking, because obviously there was the situation where the Timberwolves hired Chris Finch, and everybody thought Vanterpool would either be the next coach or be a coach somewhere. And people need to understand though that the problem wasn't that, because people are seeing that Vanterpool is an assistant, and they're saying, well, what happened to all these talks about Vanterpool being a head coach? Why did the people made a big deal out of nothing? The problem wasn't that Vanterpool didn't get named the head coach. The problem was that the NBA didn't, or that the Timberwolves didn't interview him.
Right. Yeah.
And in a league where you need, and deservedly so, more black coaches, and you give it to a white coach that you didn't
interview,
that you met with over dinner on a Friday, that doesn't sit well. So Chris Finch is probably the better coaching candidate simply because Vanterpool didn't get a job, right? Like if you're on the Chris Finch bandwagon, you say, well, see, and you go, okay, that's fine, but it's just the process. And then you tie that into like Glenn Taylor donating like hundreds of $1,000s to a racist Iowa politician for years, like whatever. But no, I mean, I'm excited for DV. He's great, and I think that this is like the opportunity because I think
this is the stepping stone gig because you get to work with these big names.
Yep.
And that kind of sign off from really high profile players helps.
That's my point exactly. I think he went to the Wolves thinking that they would have been more successful and he would be able to take credit for some of that. Instead, it was a giant dumpster fire, and they just kind of like Rosas kind of turned his back on everybody that he hired in that first wave. And we'll get to somebody else here shortly. And I think Vanterpool was like, wait, what? Like we kind of had this wink deal, or maybe you didn't.
Yeah.
I don't know. No, I'm excited for him. I think you're right. I think it's like that stepping stone, and hopefully he wins a championship or gets far next year and then gets an interview and gets a job. Because with all these people that we're seeing get jobs for the second, third, or fourth time,
I know.
Like it's like maybe just give guys a job that we've said for the last 5 years should get a job. All right, more Wolves news. So Timberwolves vice president of wellness. I don't know what his official title was. Like vice president of like injury or player health, or
I'm not sure.
Basically, he was like the health analytics guy, like behind the scenes, like what do players need? How can this injury? Blah blah blah. Each player is different. Super smart, and he was super instrumental in the NBA's COVID plan. Like he was the COVID guy for the NBA. Robbie Sikka, he's leaving the Timberwolves. Might seem like not big news.
It's a pretty big deal.
Maybe I'm reading the tea leaves here, but this is a guy who has been a lifelong Timberwolves fan, grew up in Minnesota, and like was just ecstatic about joining the team 2 years ago, and now he's leaving on his own. I don't know. It just seems...
We don't know if it's even for another gig. Like I had the same reaction that you had when I read this news. I was kind of like, this is, I think, kind of a big deal. Like this is kind of like when people start jumping ship, especially someone who like isn't really even on the like. I mean, he's on the basketball side, but he's not like making roster decisions. So it's like not the same type of pressure in terms of like he could very well survive a Rosas firing,
like exactly.
Like this guy has a lot of credibility around the league. He's extremely well liked, and he's choosing to not be with the team anymore, which is not good for the Wolves. I will say if he has just decided that he doesn't want to be in, I mean, this guy can do everything. So it's like, if this is just Robbie Sikka deciding he doesn't want to work for a sports team anymore, that's, I guess I get it. But if this is something that's specific to the Timberwolves, it's a huge loss.
Yeah, and that's another good point too, because Eric Perkins from Care 11 stepped down, and he basically just said that COVID kind of taught him that family time with friends. I wonder if, Robbie Sikka kind of felt that same thing. Granted, he was super busy during COVID and doing stuff, but I wonder if like there's time that he spent. I know he has some children, so I wonder if that played a part in it too. Saying like, I don't want to go through another grueling season. He did have this quote in the Star Tribune. The pandemic has given me some more perspective on life and what I can do to help others, and how important it is to use whatever I have time to have its maximal benefit for the world. The personal relationships that I developed with players, staff, and the entire organization were life-changing. I'm disappointed that I was not able to bring the team a championship. Blah, 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 blah. I think probably two ways to look at it. One is, yes, I think that's probably true. He's going to spend time with family. I do think part of it too is, I don't know. I tend to always think that there's some things going on internally, but I don't know. Yeah. Mostly because when I was there for 8 years, there were things always going on internally. Maybe that's why I thought
that might have something to do with that suspicion.
Yeah. But yeah, best wishes for Robbie. He's helped like our family out with some COVID scares during the last 9 months or 10 months, where we just would text him and he would text back like literally within seconds. So big shout out to Robbie. Nigeria beat U.S. in an exhibition, which, I mean, we can get into the Olympic team whenever, but I hate that roster so much.
Really?
Yeah, like why is Jeremy Grant and Kevin Love on the team?
Oh, yeah. The starters are pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with that, but I think there's just some roster spots where you're like, like we couldn't have done better at all. Like,
yeah,
Kevin Love's playing. Josh Okogie, I'd love to say he was a huge part of the win. He really wasn't. 4 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 for 7 from the field.
All about that defensive pressure, baby.
I was going to say I didn't watch the game, so it might have been just the best defense ever. All these games are going to be at like super weird times.
Which is good if they're during the workday.
They're not.
Okay,
they're all at like midnight or at like 8 a.m.
That's not good.
Yeah, I was looking at the schedule and like all the U.S. games are played at like either 11:40 a.m. or somewhere like at like 3 a.m. It's not good for.
Well, we're never watching commercials.
No,
if we do decide to watch those games.
Yeah. All right. Let's get to our 3 stars sports cards card corner. Gosh,
you were so close.
I was so close. Okay, let's try it again. 3-star sports cards card collage. I did it again.
3-star sports card corner.
There we go.
I
Julian.
didn't get the cards though. I said it's 3-star sports cards card corner.
That's beautiful. That's great. Yeah, 3-star sports cards. They are located in Bloomington and they are located in Little Canada. They go to their website 3starsportscards.com. They have breaks. Those are fun. They have all the materials you need. They do PSA grading, depending on the services available. But more importantly, they are just like super fantastic people. So go check them out and thank them. Thank them for sponsoring your favorite podcast. Hopefully it's our podcast. I don't know if they're sponsoring another podcast. Don't make it awkward. Okay. Our card corner, my advice for you this week. And I don't know if this would be like my advice necessarily, but it's my advice if you like this player. So we talked last week about Leandro Balmero. He's going to be a rookie next year. That'll be like his official rookie year. But Panini Hoops made a Balmero rookie card this year. So it wasn't available in Prism. So let's say Balmero becomes a big deal. My guess is that his Hoops cards, which will be probably like deemed his original rookie card, will have more value, even if they are Hoops. And Hoops is Hoops, right? It's not great. And it's not Prism. And I certainly could be wrong, but right now it's a pretty low risk investment. But with Balmero playing in the Olympics, certainly he could like not do great and his prices won't be affected at all because they aren't very high right now. But I think there's a world too in which he looks really good. And then everybody's like, who's this guy? Oh, he's going to go to the Timberwolves next year. Just from some quick research, I just saw an 8-card lot sell, just the base cards, sell for $5.50. One of his autos just went for $50. And then he had his rookie that was numbered to 59, went for a best offer of 35, which I'm guessing the card probably was like 25 or $30. I don't know. Like Hoops are generally not a super easy card to grade because they have some like black edging that goes on the borders. But if you're on Team Balmero and you want to cheer for a guy and invest in him, like have some like, like just skin in the game as far as like who he is as a basketball player, and then also in your personal collection or whatever. I don't think it's a bad idea. I think it's cheap. So it's like if you spend $100, you get an autograph and you get a bunch of base rookies and a numbered card, hoping he becomes good. I think there's certainly a worse way to spend your money. So that's my advice, Julian.
Nice.
Julian, you have 2 cards coming back soon.
I do. Yes.
I think we've talked about this. We've talked about this for the last month, but I think they're shipping back. Let me check the status. One really cool thing too, while we're pitching 3 stars, when you do their card grading, you can actually, they put all your cards in the system online. Yeah. And it allows you to track where your cards are at. So, Julian, these cards are still shipping back. They were shipping back on the 6th. So they should be literally within like I would guess today or tomorrow or Wednesday. So
Well, maybe we'll go this weekend.
Yeah, and maybe we'll just open them on the next pod.
That'd be good.
Yeah, maybe I'll go pick them up and deliver them to your house.
Okay.
And we'll open them on the pod.
Perfect.
All right. Thanks everybody for listening. Our next podcast, we're gonna answer 10 off-season questions. Just simple yes/no questions. Like it could be something like, will D'Angelo Russell be on the Timberwolves next year? So yeah, I'll put together a list. Maybe we'll get somebody else on from another network. I don't know. Espo, he hates us.
I know.
He hates us. He did respond to me and asked me if I wanted to do another time, which then I looked at our chat history and it's very sad. I've never had like a dating app before, but I would imagine that's what it's like. Our conversation is very one-sided. It's very much me wanting to go out for dinner and he
not like, wanting to go out for dinner.
Yeah, but he's trying to be really nice about it. Like, can't go out tonight, maybe next week? Question mark. And then
maybe next year?
Yeah, maybe never. Yeah, we'll see. All right, Julian, take it easy. Good luck with the house. Everybody else, we'll talk to you next week.